I was sitting at our kitchen table when she walked in. The pot roast smell still hung in the air. Onions, carrots, that tang of red wine. I'd opened special. Tuesday night, December cold pressing against the windows, frost already forming in the corners of the glass. She poured herself wine, took a long sip, and said it casual as asking about the weather. I've been thinking about a trip. Italy. 2 weeks. I looked up from my coffee. That so? Rick's coming too, she smiled. My ex. He's helping me plan it. Kind of a last adventure before we renew our vows in spring. The cup was warm in my hands, steady. Hands that milked cows for 50 years don't shake easy. When you leaving? Friday. 2 days. She'd been planning this for months and told me 48 hours before takeoff. I cut into my pot roast, chewed slow. You need me to drive you to the airport? She actually laughed. See? I knew you'd understand. If you genuinely trusted me, you wouldn't feel insecure about this. By the time her plane touched down in Rome, she'd try to pay for dinner. That card would say declined. And she'd have no idea why. She went upstairs to pack. I heard her moving around up there, the squeak of the closet door, the zipper on that designer luggage she'd bought last month. $200 for a suitcase. I remember thinking it was a lot at the time. I sat there listening to the kitchen clock tick. The furnace kicked on, that low rumble through the floorboards. Outside, wind rattled the loose tin on the barn roof. Been meaning to fix that since October. I waited until her footsteps crossed to the bathroom. Then I opened her laptop. She'd left her email up. Didn't even bother logging out. The confirmation was right there, third message down. Hotel Artemis, Rome. Delacroix, R. Plus guest. 1 room. Romantic suite overlooking the Amalfi Coast. 14 nights. I read it twice, then I clicked print. The printer whirred in the office down the hall, loud in the quiet house. I got up, pulled the paper out before she could hear, folded it once, and slipped it in my shirt pocket. The paper was still warm. When I came back to the kitchen, she was standing at the bottom of the stairs with an armful of clothes. You see my black heels? Hall closet, I said. She disappeared again. I picked up my phone, scrolled to Mavis's number, my sister-in-law. Joan's sister. Worked at First State Bank for 40 years, knew every regulation in the book. It was past 10, but Mavis picked up on the second ring. Warren, you all right? I need to ask you something, I said. About bank accounts, joint accounts. Pause on her end. I could hear her TV in the background, some late-night show. What kind of question? If both names are on the account, can one person freeze it, legally? Longer pause this time. Warren, what's going on? Just need to know if it's possible. She was quiet for 3 seconds. Then, yes, either account holder can freeze joint assets if there's reasonable suspicion of fraud or unauthorized use. It's legal. But Warren, how fast can it be done? If you come in first thing tomorrow, we could have freeze orders on every account by noon, but you need to tell me what's happening. I looked at the ceiling, heard Linda's footsteps above me, moving from the bedroom to the bathroom. Linda's flying to Italy Friday with her ex-boyfriend. 2 weeks, romantic hotel. I found the booking. Dead silence on Mavis's end. Then, I'll be at the bank at 8. Meet me in my office, not the lobby. Bring identification and any documentation you have. All right. Warren, her voice dropped lower. You're at war now, and in war, you cut supply lines first. I ended the call, set the phone down on the table. My hands were steady. Linda came back down with her heels, dropped them by the front door next to the growing pile of luggage. She'd packed 3 bags for 2 weeks. I'd gone to Korea with less. You're awful quiet, she said. Just tired. She poured more wine. Don't wait up for me Friday. My flight's at 6 a.m., so I'll be leaving around 3:30. I'll be up anyway. Got to check the barn. Of course you do. She smiled, but there was an edge to it. You and that barn. Sometimes I think you love those cows more than me. I didn't answer that. She took her wine upstairs. I heard the bedroom door close, then the shower running. I sat at that kitchen table in the dark, the only light coming from the stove hood. Outside, snow had started falling. Light flakes, the kind that don't stick but swirl in the wind. I pulled the hotel confirmation from my pocket, unfolded it, read it one more time in the dim light. Rick Delacroix, the man she'd dated for 3 years before we met, the one whose name came up too often in conversation, the one she'd told me not to worry about because they were just old friends. I folded the paper back up, put it in the drawer with the farm tax records and the deed to the land. 4 generations of Hollisters on this soil, going back to 1889. The shower shut off upstairs. I turned off the kitchen light and went out to the barn. The cold hit me like a wall, that December wind that cuts right through the canvas. The barn was warmer, smell of hay and diesel and animal heat. I checked the water lines, made sure nothing was frozen, ran my hand along the fence rail. The wood was rough under my palm, solid, real. By Friday morning, Linda would be gone. And by Friday afternoon, she'd learn what happens when you mistake a man's silence for surrender. Thursday morning, I was at the bank by 7:45. Frost on the truck windows, scraping ice with my glove. The parking lot was empty except for Mavis's old Buick, already there, exhaust puffing white in the cold. She met me at the side door, unlocked it without a word. Inside smelled like coffee, an old carpet, that particular bank smell of paper and air conditioning that runs year-round. Her office was in the back. Small desk, filing cabinets, a photo of Joan from 30 years ago on the shelf. My first wife, smiling in her Sunday dress. "Sit," Mavis said. I sat, pulled out my wallet, my driver's license, the folded hotel confirmation. She looked at the paper, read it once, set it down. Then she pulled up something on her computer, fingers clicking across the keyboard fast. "How many accounts does Linda have access to?" "Joint checking, joint savings, the farm operating account. I added her name last year when we renewed the equipment loan." More clicking. Mavis's mouth got thinner. "Warren, when's the last time you actually looked at the statements?" "I don't know. A few months. She handles most of the household bills, does the online banking." Mavis turned the monitor toward me. "Look at this. Rows of transactions, withdrawals, hundreds of them going back months. $500 here, $800 there, $200, $2,000. All marked transfer or ATM or bill pay." "That's normal household stuff," I said. "Groceries, utilities." "Warren." Mavis's finger traced down the screen. "Every single one of these is on a Thursday." I stared at the dates. She was right. Thursday, 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 every week, sometimes twice a week. "So? What do you do on Thursdays?" "Drive to Terre Haute, farm supply run, takes most of the day." Mavis nodded. "She waited until you were gone. Every time." The heater hummed. Someone walked past the door outside, footsteps on the tile. "How much?" I asked. Mavis pulled up another screen, did some clicking. Her face didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten. 18 months of systematic withdrawals. I'll need to run a full audit, but preliminary, you're looking at over $100,000. The office got very quiet. That can't be right. I'll have exact numbers by end of business today. But Warren, this isn't household spending. This is planned. This is someone liquidating assets. I sat back in the chair. The vinyl creaked. "Can you freeze it?" "I can freeze every account she has access to. It'll take about 2 hours to process all the paperwork. You'll need to sign affidavits, but once it's done, her cards won't work. ATM access denied. Any checks she writes will bounce." "Do it." Mavis pulled out a stack of forms. I signed where she pointed. My signature looked shaky on the page, but my hand wasn't shaking. Just the cheap pen. By 10:30, it was done. Mavis handed me copies of every freeze order, stapled and organized in a manila folder. She'll discover it when she tries to access funds. Could be at the airport, could be in Italy. And Warren, once she knows, it's going to get ugly. It's already ugly. She stood up, came around the desk, put her hand on my shoulder. "Joan would want you protected. You know that." I nodded. Couldn't speak for a second. "You call me if you need anything. Anything at all." I drove home with those papers on the seat beside me. Took the long way, past the south fields, bare dirt under snow. Everything frozen. Friday morning I was up at 4. Linda's alarm went off at 3:30. I heard her moving around, getting dressed in the dark. I made coffee, stood at the kitchen window watching snowfall in the barnyard light. She came down at 5, pulling her suitcases. Makeup done, hair perfect, coat that cost more than a new calf. "You didn't have to get up," she said. "Couldn't sleep." She kissed my cheek, light, quick, already gone in her mind. "I'll call you when I land. Safe flight." I watched her load the luggage in her car, watched the taillights disappear down the driveway, red in the pre-dawn dark. Then I went into the office, opened the filing cabinet, the one she thought I never looked in, bank statements, dozens of them, going back 2 years, all stuffed in a folder marked Household Bead. I spread them across the desk, started reading. Every Thursday, like Mavis said, but it went further back than 18 months. The first withdrawal was 3 weeks after our wedding. 3 weeks. I sat there in that cold office staring at the dates and understood something that made my chest hurt. She'd married me to rob me. This was the plan from the start. Rick's plan, her plan. Italy wasn't the beginning. Our wedding was. Saturday morning, Mavis showed up at 8 with 2 thermoses of coffee and a cardboard box full of bank statements. Pulled everything from the archives, she said, setting the box on my desk. Every account, every transaction going back 3 years. The farm office was cold. I hadn't bothered with the space heater. We spread the statements out across the old oak desk, my mother's desk, the one she'd used to keep the farm books back when everything was handwritten ledgers. Mavis pulled out a red pen, the kind teachers use. We're going to trace every dollar, she said. You tell me what's legitimate household spending, I'll mark it green. Anything suspicious gets red. We worked for 3 hours. She'd read a line. I'd confirm or deny. Green check, red circle, green check, red circle. The pile of red grew faster. December 1st, last year, Mavis said. $8,500 withdrawal. What's that? No idea. Red circle. August 15, $12,000 transferred to external account. You authorize that? No. Red circle. The calculator tape grew longer. Mavis tore it off, started a new one. The office smelled like coffee and old paper and that particular scent of cold that seeps into farmhouses in winter, wood and dust and stillness. By 11, we had a number. Mavis circled it, pushed the calculator across the desk. $127,620. That's not possible, I said. It's possible. It happened. She set down the red pen, picked up her coffee. Warren, look at the pattern. She pointed to the statements. See how the withdrawals increase after August? Your heart scare. I'd had a bad spell in August. Irregular heartbeat. Spent 2 nights in the hospital while they ran tests. Turned out to be nothing serious, just age and stress. But Linda had been there every day, holding my hand, looking worried. After that hospital stay, Mavis said, the withdrawals double, sometimes triple. She thought you were dying. The space heater clicked on, that electric smell of burning dust. She was betting on my death. Yes, I looked at the numbers, all those Thursdays, all those trips to Terre Haute while she sat here in this office transferring money, planning her exit. The last withdrawal, I said. The $8,500. What date? Mavis checked. December 1st, 2 weeks before Italy, right after Thanksgiving. That's a down payment, she said quietly. For something, property maybe. A condo. I stood up, walked to the window. The south field was empty, snow-covered. Weather vane on the barn spinning in the wind, pointing north. Bad planting weather if it was spring, but it wasn't spring yet. She's in Italy right now, I said, having the time of her life. Not for long. My phone started ringing around 2 that afternoon. Italian number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again 5 minutes later. Same number, then again, then twice more in the next hour. By 6 o'clock, I had 11 missed calls and 4 voicemails. Caleb called around 7. My son lives in Indianapolis, works as an agricultural lawyer. We hadn't talked much since I married Linda. He'd made his feelings about that pretty clear. Dad, you okay? I'm fine. I got a weird call from Linda. She's in Italy, says you froze her bank accounts. That's right. Silence on his end. I could hear traffic in the background, city noise. Want to tell me why? She's been stealing from me, over $100,000, going back to 3 weeks after our wedding. More silence. Jesus, Dad, I'm sorry. Don't be, I'm handling it. You need help? Legal help? Might. Not sure yet. I'm coming down tomorrow. We need to talk about this properly. You don't need to do that. Yeah, I do. I'll be there by noon. He hung up. I sat in my chair in the living room. The TV was on, but I wasn't watching it. Just light and noise. The phone rang again. Linda. This time I answered. Warren. She was crying, angry crying. What did you do? My card was declined at dinner. Then the ATM wouldn't work. Then the hotel tried to charge the room, and it failed. I'm stranded here. You're not stranded. You're with Rick. This is insane. You can't just freeze my accounts. They're not your accounts. They're joint accounts, and yes, I can. Why are you doing this? I looked at the desk across the room, the stack of statements with all those red circles. You know why. I don't. You're trying to control me. You're trying to punish me for taking one trip. $127,000, Linda. 3 weeks after our wedding, you started taking it. Every Thursday, when I was in the Terre Haute. Dead silence on her end. Then, I can explain that. I'm sure you can. Explain it to a lawyer. Warren, please. I hung up. She called back immediately. I declined the call. She called again. I turned the phone off. The house was quiet. Just the furnace running, the wind outside, the old boards settling in the cold. I went upstairs, got in bed, looked at the ceiling in the dark. For the first time, in 3 months since she'd started acting distant and secretive, I fell asleep within minutes. Slept straight through till dawn, didn't wake once. Best night's sleep I'd had since Joan died. Caleb showed up Sunday noon like he promised. Pulled in driving his Audi, city car not made for gravel driveways. He'd put on weight since I last saw him. Good weight, not stress weight. Looked healthy. We shook hands on the porch. His grip was firm. Coffee? I asked. Yeah. We sat at the kitchen table. Same table where Linda had told me about Italy 9 days ago. Felt like a year. I laid out the bank statements. Caleb put on reading glasses. When had he started needing those? And went through them one by one. Didn't say anything, just read. His finger traced the columns of numbers. After 20 minutes, he took off the glasses. This is systematic fraud. Textbook. You could file criminal charges. Don't want criminal charges. Want her gone and want my money back. You might not get it all back. Depends where it went. Mavis thinks real estate. Down payment on something. Caleb nodded, pulled out his phone, started typing notes. I'll need copies of everything. I'll also need to know about any property you two own jointly. Just this farm. It's in my name. Has been since 1987 when Dad died. Deed's clean. She ever ask you to add her to the deed? I thought about it. Yeah, last summer. Said it would be easier for estate planning. I told her no. Good. That saved you. He kept typing. What about the wedding? You two legally married? Justice of the Peace, 3 years ago, February. Any prenup? No, he grimaced. That complicates things. Indiana's not a community property state, but she could still claim rights to assets acquired during the marriage, including farm income. The coffee was getting cold in my cup. Outside the window, crows were gathering in the bare oak tree, black shapes against gray sky. How long before she gets back? Caleb asked. Flight lands January 2nd. 2 more weeks. That gives us time. I'll draft a separation agreement, start documentation for a fraud case. You freeze all accounts? Everything she had access to. Good. Keep it that way. And Dad? He looked at me straight. I was wrong about her. I thought you were just lonely after Mom died, making a mistake. I didn't think she was actually stealing from you. I'm sorry. You were right about the mistake part. Yeah, but you're handling it now. That's what matters. We spent the rest of the afternoon in the farm office. Caleb set up his laptop on Mom's old desk, started building files. Outside, snow began falling again. Thick flakes, the kind that stick. Around 4, gravel crunched in the driveway. Linda's car. Caleb and I looked at each other. She's not supposed to be back for 2 weeks, I said. Guess she found a flight. We went to the window. Linda was getting out of a rental car, not her own vehicle. She looked thinner, or maybe just tired. No makeup, hair pulled back. She slammed the car door hard enough to rattle it. This is going to be bad, Caleb said. She didn't knock. Came right through the front door like she still lived here. Saw me standing in the living room. Saw Caleb. You, she pointed at me. You humiliated me. In front of Rick, in front of the hotel staff, in front of everyone. You humiliated yourself. I had to call Rick's credit card company to cover the hotel. Do you know how that felt? About how it felt finding out you stole $100,000 from me. She stopped, looked at Caleb. You believe this? He's making up numbers, trying to... I've seen the bank statements, Caleb said. His voice was flat, lawyer voice. Every transaction, going back 3 years. You want to explain the pattern? Her face changed. Something flickered there. Calculation, maybe. Working out angles. Those were household expenses. Warren never looks at the accounts. He doesn't understand. $12,000 in 1 day, I said. That's not household expenses. That was for the kitchen remodel we talked about. We never remodeled the kitchen. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. You're twisting everything. You're controlling and paranoid, and this is financial abuse. Freezing my accounts, trapping me in another country? I could have you arrested. Good luck with that, Caleb said. She turned on him. You always hated me. From day one, you poisoned him against me. I didn't need to. You did that yourself. Her face went red. Your mother would be ashamed of both of you. Joan would be— Don't. Caleb's voice cut like a knife. Don't you dare use my mother's name. She would have reported you to the police the first day. We're being kinder than she would have been. Linda stared at him. Then she looked at me. I want my things. They're in the spare room, packed. I'd done it yesterday. All her clothes, her toiletries, her books, 4 boxes and 3 suitcases. She went upstairs. We heard her moving around, opening doors, slamming drawers. She's going to fight this, Caleb said quietly. I know. It could get ugly. She could claim all kinds of things, elder abuse, coercion. She could try to make you look like the bad guy. Let her try. Linda came back down with 1 box, wouldn't look at either of us. I'll be back for the rest tomorrow. No, I said it calm. Take it all now, or I'm putting it on the porch. She set the box down, went back up, made 3 more trips. Caleb helped carry things to the rental car without speaking. When the last box was loaded, Linda stood by the driver's door. You're going to regret this, she said. I already regret it. I regret marrying you. She got in the car, reversed too fast, spraying gravel. The taillights disappeared down the driveway. Caleb and I stood on the porch in the cold. Snow was falling heavier now, starting to accumulate. She'll retaliate, he said. How? Legal system. She'll find a lawyer, file something, try to flip the narrative. He was right. 3 weeks later, I got served papers at the feed store. Process server handed me the envelope while I was loading 50-pound bags of cracked corn. Buck Treadwell stood there watching, along with 4 other farmers. I opened it in the truck. Linda was suing me. Petition for emergency injunction and damages, claimed I'd engaged in financial abuse, elder manipulation, coercive control. She was asking the court to unfreeze the accounts, award her half of all marital assets, and compensate her for emotional distress. Court date, February 18th. I drove home, called Caleb. She filed, I said. Yeah, I got the notification an hour ago. It's aggressive but not unexpected. Can she win? Depends on the judge. If she can make you look controlling and her look like a victim, maybe. But we have the bank records, we have the pattern, the facts are on our side. What do? We prepare. I'll file a response. We'll present everything in mediation first, that's what the judge will order. We show the evidence, show the theft, show the timeline. We make her explain where $127,000 went. When's the hearing? February 18th, 6 weeks. I looked at the calendar on the kitchen wall. February 18th was circled in red now, and below it, in black. April 15th, spring planting. If this dragged into April, I'd miss the planting window. Miss the window, lose the crop year, lose the year at my age, probably lose the farm. She knew that. That's why she'd filed now. She was betting I'd settle just to plant on time. Sunday morning, I went to church. First time since before Christmas. Folks stared, some nodded, some looked away. I sat in my usual pew, 5th row, left side, where I'd sat with Joan for 40 years. Deacon Foster was giving announcements. He saw me, nodded, kept going. After the service, people split. Half came up, shook my hand. Good to see you, Warren. Hang in there. Let us know if you need anything. The other half left out the side door, didn't make eye contact. I was standing in the parking lot when Foster walked over. Warren, Deacon, heard about the court case. Word travels. Always does. He looked at the sky, gray clouds moving in. Some folks are saying you're being too hard on her. Others are saying you're doing the right thing. Which side are you on? He was quiet for a moment. Truth's side, wherever that lands. He pulled an envelope from his coat pocket, plain white, no writing on it. This is from the Benevolence Fund, for legal fees. There's more if you need it. I opened it. $500 bills. Foster, I can't. Yes, you can. Your granddad donated the land this church sits on. 1947. We don't forget. He put his hand on my shoulder. Truth has a way of surfacing, Warren. Give it time. He walked away before I could thank him properly. I stood there holding that envelope, snow starting to fall again, and felt something crack in my chest. Not breaking, just opening. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. That night, Caleb called. Judge Patterson assigned. He's fair, old school, good for us. When do we present evidence? Mediation set for February 10th, week before the hearing. We'll lay out everything there. Bank records, timeline, the hotel booking. If she's smart, she'll settle. If not, we go to trial. How long does a trial take? Silence. Then, could be months. Discovery, depositions, court schedule. If it goes to trial, you might miss spring planting. I looked out the kitchen window. The south field, buried under snow. In 10 weeks, that snow would be gone. In 12 weeks, the ground would be warm enough to plant. Then she better settle, I said. After I hung up, I sat at the table in the dark, just the stove light on, the house settling, creaking in the cold. Judge Patterson set the hearing for March 15th. Spring planting was April 15th. 30 days between losing everything and saving it. I had 60 days to prove my case, or I'd lose 4 generations of Hollister land. The math was getting very tight. February came in cold, the kind of cold that makes fence posts crack and water lines freeze even when you think they're buried deep enough. I kept going to church. Same pew, same time. Every Sunday the divide got clearer, half the congregation on my side, half on Linda's. Not that she ever showed up. She'd moved back to her mother's place in Bloomington. But word had gotten around. Her version of events. The old man who froze his wife's accounts for taking a vacation. The controlling husband who couldn't handle his wife having male friends. The bitter widower who never got over his first wife. I heard the whispers, saw the looks, didn't respond to any of it. Second Sunday of February, I sat down in my pew. Alone, like always now. Then Deacon Foster slid in beside me. Didn't say anything, just sat there, opened his hymnal, waited for service to start. After the final prayer, he walked me to my truck. Heard Linda's been talking, he said. People can talk. They're saying you wouldn't let her have her own bank account, that you monitored all her spending, that you got violent when she wanted independence. My jaw tightened. None of that's true. I know. He leaned against my truck bed. I also heard something interesting. Linda told the mission committee last year she'd donated $5,000 to the Guatemala trip, put her name on the donor wall and everything. So I asked Jim Crowder, he's treasurer, to check the books. Foster pulled out a small notebook, flipped it open. No record of any deposit, no check, no cash, no electronic transfer, nothing. The wind kicked up, swirling snow across the parking lot. She lied about a church donation? Looks that way. I'm going to dig a little more, but if she lied about that... He closed the notebook. Truth has a way of surfacing, like I said. He walked away. I stood there watching him go, breath fogging in the cold. That afternoon, Caleb drove down again. Third time in as many weeks. He'd started keeping files at the farm, set up a whole system in Mom's office. We sat at the desk. He had his laptop. I had coffee. Mediation's in 6 days, he said. We need to be ready for anything. She's going to come in with her own narrative. Probably paint you as controlling, financially abusive, maybe even mentally unstable. I'm none of those things. I know. But she's going to try. Her lawyer's good. I looked him up. Young, aggressive, takes a lot of divorce cases. He'll coach her to cry, to look sympathetic, to make the judge feel protective of her. The numbers don't lie. Numbers don't, but people do. He pulled up a spreadsheet. Here's what we have. 127 documented withdrawals over 3 years. All on Thursdays. All matching days you were in Terre Haute. Patterns clear. What else? The hotel booking, Rick's name on it, romantic suite, 14 nights. That establishes the Italy trip wasn't innocent. She'll say they're just friends. Which is why I subpoenaed Rick's financial records yesterday. I looked up. You did what? Caleb smiled. Thin smile, lawyer smile. Agricultural law isn't my only specialty. Did some divorce work early in my career. I know how to dig. And I found something interesting about Rick Delacroix. He turned the laptop toward me. Property records. An LLC, Delacroix Holdings. He owns a condo building downtown. Fancy place, Riverview. And guess who toured a unit there last November? Linda. Linda, 1 bedroom, 23rd floor, listed at $285,000. He clicked to another screen. And guess what the down payment requirement is? I looked at the number. $28,500. 10%. But here's the thing. She didn't buy it. Application was withdrawn in December. He clicked again. Because Rick offered her a different arrangement. Bank transfer record. From Richard Delacroix to Linda Hollister. $45,000. Dated January 15th, 2 weeks after she got back from Italy. Why would he give her $45,000? I asked. Caleb zoomed in on the memo line. Handwritten note scanned into the record. Loan to L. Hollister. Repayment due upon property sale. The office got very quiet. He wasn't giving her money, I said slowly. He was investing in her stealing mine. Exactly. He loans her cash for living expenses while she liquidates your assets. When she sells the farm or gets a settlement, he gets paid back plus interest. It's a con. They're both running a con. I sat back. The chair creaked. Outside, a cardinal landed on the bird feeder, bright red against the snow. Can we use this in mediation? Absolutely. It proves conspiracy, it proves the theft was premeditated, and it proves Rick wasn't some innocent friend. He was her business partner. Caleb closed the laptop. Dad, we've got her. The question is whether she'll admit it or force us to trial. What do you think she'll do? Depends how scared she is and how much she thinks she can still take you for. That evening, I drove to Buck Treadwell's place. Needed to talk about spring equipment. Cedar was acting up, might need replacement parts. Buck was in his shop, working on a combine. Grease up to his elbows, radio playing old country. Warren. He wiped his hands on a rag. What brings you out? Cedar's making a noise. Thought you could take a look before planting season. Sure thing. Bring it by next week. I'll check it out. We talked machinery for a while. Prices, supply chain, the usual. Then Buck got quiet. Can I ask you something? He said. Go ahead. Linda came by here last summer, June, maybe July, asked me what this farm might be worth if you sold it. The shop smelled like diesel and metal and old concrete, heat lamp glowing orange in the corner. She said that? Yeah, said you two were thinking about downsizing, maybe moving somewhere warmer, asked what I thought 380 acres would go for with the buildings and equipment. What did you tell her? Told her this market, with land prices up, probably $4,800 an acre. Call it $1.8 million total, give or take. I did the math. If she got half in a divorce, that's $900,000. I didn't think much of it at the time, Buck said. Figured you two were just planning ahead. But then I heard about Italy, and the accounts, and... He trailed off. She wasn't planning with you, was she? No, she was planning without me. Buck shook his head. I'm sorry, Warren. If I'd known, you couldn't have known. Nobody could. But that wasn't quite true. There'd been signs, small things, the way she never learned the farm work, never wanted to understand the planting cycles or the equipment maintenance or the cattle rotation. The way she talked about the land like it was just an asset, not a legacy. I'd ignored it all because I was lonely. Because after Joan died, this house was too quiet. Because Linda paid attention to me, laughed at my stories, made me feel like maybe I had a few good years left, and she'd used all of that. You need anything for the legal stuff? Buck asked. Character witness, testimony, whatever? Might take you up on that. Just say when. He picked up a wrench. Your daddy co-signed my first tractor back in '89. I don't forget that kind of thing. I drove home in the dark, stars out, cold and bright. The kind of February night where everything seems frozen in place, waiting. But March was coming, and spring after that. I just had to hold on long enough to see it. Week before mediation, Linda's lawyer sent a letter. Caleb opened it at the kitchen table, read it twice, then slid it across to me. Settlement offer. Linda would drop all claims if I unfroze the accounts, gave her $50,000 cash, and signed a non-disclosure agreement. What's a non-disclosure? I asked. Means you can't talk about what happened. Can't tell anyone about the theft, the Italy trip, any of it. She gets to control the narrative. And if I don't take it? We go to mediation, and if that fails, trial. I push the letter back. No deal. You sure? $50,000 is a lot less than half the farm. I'm not paying her to rob me, and I'm not staying quiet about it. Caleb smiled. Actually smiled. Good. I was hoping you'd say that. Mediation was February 10th. County courthouse. Same building where I'd filed my taxes for 40 years. Smelled like floor wax and old wood, and the burnt coffee they kept in the lobby. Linda was already there when we arrived, sitting with her lawyer in the hallway. She'd lost weight, too much weight. Face looked thin, older. She wouldn't look at me. Her lawyer was exactly what Caleb had described. Young guy, expensive suit, smooth voice. Introduced himself as Marcus Webb. Gentlemen, I'm hoping we can resolve this amicably today. We'll see, Caleb said. Judge Patterson's clerk called us into the conference room. Small space, long table, terrible fluorescent lights. Judge wasn't there. Mediator was. Woman named Sarah Chen, court-appointed, neutral expression. We sat on opposite sides, Linda next to Webb, me next to Caleb. Chin laid out the ground rules. Each side presents their case, then we negotiate. Everything said here is confidential unless we reach an agreement. Webb went first. He painted Linda as a victim, said I'd controlled all the finances from day one, never let her have her own account, questioned every purchase, made her account for every dollar. When she finally asserted her independence, took a trip with an old friend, I retaliated by freezing everything, leaving her stranded in a foreign country. Mrs. Hollister was humiliated, Webb said, traumatized, unable to access her own money for basic necessities. This is textbook financial abuse, particularly concerning given Mr. Hollister's age and the power dynamic. I kept my face neutral. Caleb had coached me. Don't react. Let them talk. Then we bury them with facts. Chin turned to us. Mr. Hollister, your response? Caleb opened his laptop. Let's talk about whose money it actually was. He pulled up the bank records on a screen, every withdrawal highlighted in red. 127 withdrawals over 36 months, totaling $127,120. Every single one occurred on a Thursday. Want to know what Mr. Hollister does on Thursdays? Chin looked at me. Farm supply run, I said. Terre Haute. Takes 6-7 hours. She waited until he was gone, Caleb said. Every time. That's not a wife managing household expenses. That's someone systematically liquidating assets while covering their share of tracks. Webb jumped in. Those were legitimate household expenses. $12,000 in one day? Caleb pulled up another screen. $8,500 3 weeks before the Italy trip? What household expense costs $8,500? Silence. Here's what that money bought. Caleb clicked to property records, the condo listing. 1-bedroom unit in Rick Delacroix's building, viewed by Mrs. Hollister November 18th. Down payment requirement $28,500. But she didn't buy it. Want to know why? He pulled up the bank transfer. Rick's $45,000 loan. The handwritten memo. Repayment due upon property sale. Linda's face went white. Mr. Delacroix loaned your client $45,000, Caleb said. Not as a gift, not as an investment. He expected repayment when she sold the farm, because that was the plan. Steal enough money to survive until she could force a divorce settlement, sell the property, split the proceeds with her business partner. Webb was flipping through papers, looking for something. This is speculation. It's bank records, court-admissible evidence. Caleb pulled up more documents. Here's Mrs. Hollister's search history from the farm computer, July through November. Searched, how to force property sale and divorce, Indiana marital asset division, community property rules. How much is farmland worth per acre? Chen was taking notes now, fast. And here's the real kicker, Caleb said. He pulled up the church records. Deacon Foster had sent them over yesterday. Mrs. Hollister told her church she donated $5,000 to their Guatemala mission trip. Had her name put on the donor wall, but there's no record of any donation. The treasurer confirms, no check, no cash, no transfer. She kept that money too. Linda made a sound, small, choked. She didn't just rob my client, Caleb said. She lied to a church, committed fraud to look charitable while stealing from her husband behind his back. Webb put his hand on Linda's arm, whispered something. She shook her head. Chin set down her pen. Mrs. Hollister, do you want to respond to any of this? Linda looked at me for the first time. Her eyes were red. I needed that money, she said quietly. To be independent, to have something of my own. You had a home, I said. 4 generations of land. You had everything. I had nothing. You loved your dead wife more than you ever loved me. The room went silent. That's probably true, I said. But that didn't give you the right to rob me. Chen cleared her throat. Let's take a 15-minute break. In the hallway, Caleb and I stood by the window. Sleet was coming down outside, tapping against the glass. Late winter weather, the worst kind. Too warm for snow, too cold for rain. We've got her, Caleb said. Webb knows it. He's going to come back with a real offer. What kind of offer? She returns what she can, signs an admission, takes a smaller settlement, or we go to trial and she gets nothing. How much can she return? Depends what she spent. But between Rick's loan and whatever she's got left, maybe $60,000? The rest is gone. 60,000 out of 127. Better than nothing. But it wasn't about the money anymore. I want her to say it, I said. Out loud. In front of everyone. I want her to admit what she did. Caleb nodded. We can make that a condition. When we went back in, Webb's whole posture had changed. less confident, more careful. My client is willing to discuss a settlement, he said. Return of funds, dissolution of marriage, mutual release of claims. Not good enough, Caleb said. We want a written admission of theft, signed, notarized, and we want it on record. Linda's head snapped up. No. Then we go to trial, Caleb said. And all of this becomes public record. Every withdrawal, every lie, Rick's loan, the condo search, the church fraud, all of it. You can't. We absolutely can. Caleb closed his laptop. Your choice. Admit it privately now or have it aired in open court. Either way, the truth comes out. Webb whispered to Linda again. Longer this time. She was shaking her head, but he kept talking. Finally, she slumped back in her chair. What do you want? She asked, voice flat, defeated. Full accounting of where the money went, Caleb said. Return of all accessible funds. Written admission of theft. Dissolution of marriage. You keep your personal vehicle and $20,000 for living expenses. Everything else stays with Mr. Hollister. That's not fair. Fair. I leaned forward. You stole from me for 3 years. Planned to sell my family's land. Used a church donation as a cover story. Fair doesn't exist anymore. Chin looked at Linda. Mrs. Hollister, this is actually a reasonable offer given the evidence. You could face criminal charges for what's documented here. Webb nodded at her, just once. Linda closed her eyes. Fine. We'll need it in writing, Caleb said. Today, before we leave. It took 2 hours to draft the settlement. Linda sat in the corner, not speaking. Webb did all the talking, negotiating small points, trying to salvage what he could. By 4 o'clock, it was done. Linda signed with shaking hands. Her signature looked nothing like her usual writing. Small, cramped, defeated. The admission was 3 paragraphs. Detailed every lie, every withdrawal, every deception. Ended with, I knowingly and systematically stole marital funds for personal gain. I betrayed my husband's trust and violated my marriage vows. I take full responsibility for my actions. Chin notarized it, made copies for everyone. When we left the courthouse, the sleet had turned to rain, warmer. March weather coming early. Caleb walked me to my truck. You did good in there, he said. Doesn't feel good. No, but it's done. She can't touch you anymore. I looked at the settlement agreement in my hand. Everything I'd wanted, everything I'd fought for. It felt like holding ashes. I'm coming back next week, Caleb said. Going to stay through planting season. Help you get the equipment ready. I looked at him. What about your job? I can work remote and... He glanced away. Ellen and I have been talking about moving back. The kids should know this place. Something cracked open in my chest again. Bigger this time. Your mother would like that, I said. Yeah, she would. We stood there in the rain, not saying anything. Just the sound of water on pavement and a distant truck on the highway. Spring was coming, and for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't facing it alone. 3 days after the settlement, I woke up at 4 in the morning and couldn't get back to sleep. Not because of worry, not because of anger, because of something worse. Doubt. I got dressed in the dark, went down to the barn. February cold, but softer now. The kind that means winter's losing its grip. Stars still out, clear sky, that deep silence before dawn. I checked the cattle, fed them, ran my hand along the fence rails. Everything solid, everything in order. Then I went to the office, Mom's desk. The one she'd kept the farm books on for 30 years before Dad took over. The one I'd used since 1987, the one Caleb had worked at for the past month, building the case against Linda. On the wall, the wedding photo, Joan in her cream-colored dress, me in my suit. June 1978. 45 years ago. She'd been gone 5 years now, but that photo was still there, right where I'd hung it. I sat in the chair, looked at her face. I don't know if I did the right thing, I said out loud. The furnace kicked on, that low rumble through the floor. She stole from me. She lied to me. She was going to sell this place and split it with her ex-boyfriend. The evidence was clear. Caleb said so. Mavis said so. Everyone said I was doing the right thing. I picked up the settlement agreement, Linda's signature at the bottom, her admission of guilt. But she's broken now, completely broken, lost her money, her home, her reputation. She's living with her mother at 52 years old. Everyone in 3 counties knows what she did. Joan smiled in the photo, that smile she had when she knew I was overthinking something. Am I supposed to feel good about that? Because I don't. I stopped. Didn't know the word. Empty. That was the word. I'd won. Got everything I wanted. The money back. Most of it. The farm secure. Linda out of my life. Justice served. So why did I feel like I'd lost something? The photo didn't answer. Just Joan's face, frozen in time, young and happy and gone. She used me, I said. She saw a lonely old widower with land and money, and she played me like a fiddle. That's what Caleb says. That's what everyone says. But there was another truth underneath that one. I'd known something was off from the beginning. The way Linda never wanted to learn the farm, never asked about planting seasons or cattle rotation or equipment maintenance, never talked about this place like it was a home, only like it was property. I'd ignored it because I didn't want to be alone anymore. That's on me, I said to the photo. Not knowing about the theft, that's on her, but ignoring the signs, that's on me. Dawn was starting, gray light through the window, cardinals singing somewhere outside, that sharp whistle that means spring's coming. You would have seen through her in 5 minutes, I said. You would have told me to run, and I would have listened to you. But Joan was gone, and I'd been so desperate not to feel that absence that I'd let someone else in without really looking at who they were. The door opened. Mavis stood there with 2 cups of coffee. Saw your truck, she said. Figured you might need company. She set 1 cup on the desk, sat in the other chair. You wondering if you're the bad guy here? She asked after a minute. I nodded. You're not. Feels like I might be. Warren. She sipped her coffee. You wondering if Joan would want you protected, or would she want you to be kind? Yeah. She'd want both, but protection first. Always. Mavis looked at Joan's photo. My sister was the kindest person I ever knew, but she was also practical. She kept the books. She knew what it took to survive. And she would have reported Linda to the police day 1. That doesn't make me feel better. It's not supposed to make you feel better. It's supposed to remind you that kindness without boundaries isn't kindness. It's just weakness dressed up in good intentions. I drank my coffee. It was too hot, but I didn't care. Linda made choices, Mavis said. Every withdrawal, every Thursday, every lie. Those were her choices, not yours. You didn't make her steal. You just refused to let her get away with it. She's destroyed now. She destroyed herself. That's what thieves do. Mavis stood up. You want to know what Joan would really say? She'd say, Warren Hollister, you loved again. That took courage. It didn't work out. That happens. But you protected what we built together, and that matters. Now quit wallowing and go plant some corn. I almost smiled. That did sound like Joan. You staying for breakfast? I asked. Can't. Got to open the bank. But, Warren, she paused at the door. You did the right thing, the hard right thing. Don't let guilt make you second-guess that. She left. I sat there alone with my coffee and Joan's photo and the settlement papers. Outside, the cardinal kept singing. First real bird of spring. That afternoon, Deacon Foster called. Warren, you got a minute? Sure. Can you come by the church? Need to show you something. I drove over. The church parking lot was empty except for Foster's truck. He met me at the side door. Remember when I told you about Linda's mission trip donation? Yeah? Well, I kept digging, talked to Jim Crowder, the treasurer, then I talked to Pastor Mills, then I called the mission organization in Guatemala. We walked into his office, small space, desk covered in papers, bulletin boards with schedules and prayer lists. Foster pulled out a folder, opened it. Linda didn't just lie about donating, she took money from the actual mission fund. I stared at him. How much? $5,000. Withdrew it in cash last March. Told Jim she was delivering it personally to the mission headquarters on a trip to visit her sister. Jim trusted her. She was on the benevolence committee. But there was no trip, no delivery. The mission never got the money. That's not theft from me, I said slowly. That's theft from the church. That's theft from God's work. Foster closed the folder. I talked to the church board this morning. Unanimous decision. We're filing charges. Criminal charges. Foster, I know what you're thinking, that it's vindictive, that she's already lost enough. But Warren, if we don't do this, we're telling everyone in this congregation that you can steal from the church without consequences. We can't do that. He was right. I knew he was right, but it still felt like piling on. There's something else, Foster said. The board took a vote. We're organizing a farm loan fund, 30 families pledged so far, $30,000 total, interest-free, payable after harvest. Whatever you need for planting season, seed, diesel, equipment repairs, it's covered. My throat got tight. Why? Because this church sits on land your granddad donated in 1947. Because your family has been here for 4 generations. Because you stood up for what's right even when it cost you. He put his hand on my shoulder. And because we don't let our own fall. I couldn't speak for a second. I'll pay it back, I finally managed. We know you will, but that's not why we're doing it. He smiled. We're doing it because it's what Joan would have done for any of us. And we miss her. This is how we honor that. I left the church with that folder in my hand and something burning in my chest that might have been hope. Linda had stolen from me, from the church, from everyone who trusted her. But the church was still standing. The farm was still standing, and I wasn't alone. Maybe that was what justice actually looked like. Not revenge, not destruction, just boundaries, consequences. People standing up and saying, this far, no further. I drove home through the late afternoon. The sun was warmer now, ice melting on the south side of the barn roof, dripping steady, mud season coming. And after mud season, spring, I had work to do. March 29th, the formal settlement hearing, Judge Patterson's courtroom, everything finalized and entered into public record. I sat at the table with Caleb. Linda sat across with Webb. The room smelled like old wood and floor polish and the particular silence of official places. Patterson was older than me, 70-something, been on the bench since before I married Joan. He read through the settlement agreement slowly, turning pages, taking his time. Mr. Hollister, he said finally, you're accepting return of $62,000 out of $127,000 stolen. The rest is unrecoverable? Yes, Your Honor. And Mrs. Hollister admits to systematic theft over a 36-month period? Webb stood up. Your Honor, my client has signed an admission as part of the settlement. I'm asking her. Patterson looked at Linda. Mrs. Hollister, did you steal $127,000 from your husband over 3 years? Linda's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. Speak up, please. Yes, I did. Patterson made a note. And the purpose of this theft was to fund a new life with your former boyfriend, Mr. Richard Delacroix? Silence. Mrs. Hollister? It wasn't like that exactly. Your Honor, Caleb stood. We have documentation that Mr. Delacroix loaned Mrs. Hollister $45,000 in January, repayable upon sale of Mr. Hollister's farm. We also have property records showing Mrs. Hollister toured a condo in Mr. Delacroix's building. The pattern is clear. Patterson looked at Linda. Is that documentation accurate? She nodded. Out loud, please. Yes. The judge sat back. Mr. Delacroix aware of these proceedings? He's been subpoenaed as a witness, Caleb said. He's actually outside. His attorney worked out an arrangement. He testifies about the loan structure. He's not charged as an accessory. Patterson's eyebrows went up. Bring him in. Webb looked like he'd been hit. Your Honor, that's not necessary. It's absolutely necessary. Bailiff, please bring in Mr. Delacroix. 2 minutes later, Rick Delacroix walked in. Tall guy, fit, expensive suit. Everything about him said money and success. He didn't look at Linda, sat in the witness box, got sworn in. Mr. Delacroix, Patterson said, you loaned Mrs. Hollister $45,000 in January, is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. What was the nature of this loan? Rick's lawyer leaned forward. Your Honor, my client has a prepared statement. He can read it. Rick pulled out a paper, read it flat, no emotion. In November, Linda Hollister approached me about a business opportunity. She indicated she was in the process of divorcing her husband and would be receiving a substantial settlement from the sale of farmland. She requested a bridge loan to cover living expenses until the settlement was finalized. I provided $45,000 as a loan, not a gift, with repayment terms contingent on her property settlement. Linda made a sound. Small, choked. You and Mrs. Hollister were in a romantic relationship? Patterson asked. No, Your Honor. We dated in college, but that was 30 years ago. This was purely a financial arrangement. The Italy trip? Rick shifted. She invited me. I went, but it wasn't romantic. She paid for her ticket with her own funds. I paid for mine. We had separate hotel rooms. Linda's head snapped up. That's a lie. Mrs. Hollister, Patterson said sharply. You'll have your turn. But we all knew the truth now. Rick was covering himself, rewriting history, making it sound like a business deal, not a relationship. Mr. Delacroix, Caleb said. The hotel booking shows one room, romantic suite. I upgraded my room. She stayed across the hall. Complete lie, but smart. No way to prove otherwise now. And your current relationship status? Caleb asked. Rick's lawyer started to object, but Rick held up a hand. I'm engaged to someone else. Have been since December. The courtroom went dead silent. Linda's face crumbled. All the color drained out. December? Caleb asked. Before or after the Italy trip? Before. We got engaged December 1st. The same day, Linda withdrew $8,500. The same day she finalized the Italy plans, she'd been planning a future with a man who'd already committed to someone else. So to be clear, Caleb said, you loaned Mrs. Hollister $45,000 not as a romantic partner, but as an investor, expecting return on investment from her divorce settlement? That's correct. And you're currently engaged to another woman? Yes. No further questions. Patterson dismissed Rick. He walked out without looking at Linda once. The judge turned to her. Mrs. Hollister, you want to revise your statement about the nature of your relationship with Mr. Delacroix? She couldn't speak, just sat there, shaking. Webb put his hand on her arm, whispered something. Your Honor, Webb said, my client declines to comment further. Very well. Patterson signed the settlement papers. Marriage dissolved. Mrs. Hollister returns $62,000, paid in monthly installments of $3,500 over 18 months. She retains her vehicle and $20,000 in accessible funds. Mr. Hollister retains all property, farm assets, and remaining marital accounts. Written admission, entered into record. He banged the gavel. We're adjourned. Outside the courthouse, the sun was warm. First real warm day of spring. Mud everywhere, snowmelt running in the gutters. The maple trees had that red haze that means buds are starting. Linda came out 10 minutes after us, Webb with her, carrying her briefcase. She looked small, fragile. Nothing like the woman who'd sat at my kitchen table 4 months ago, telling me about Italy with confidence in her voice. She walked past us, stopped, turned around. He used me, she said. Rick, he used me the whole time. I didn't say anything. You believe me? Doesn't matter if I believe you. It's over. I'm sorry. Tears on her face now, real ones. For all of it. I know that doesn't mean anything, but I am. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. She stared at me. Then she walked to her car. Webb followed. Caleb and I watched them drive away. You all right? He asked. Yeah. She's lying about Rick using her. They were in it together. He's just smarter than she is. Got out before the walls closed in. I know. And now she's alone. No money, no husband, no boyfriend. She destroyed her own life. I know that too. We walked to my truck. The courthouse lawn was greening up, first grass of spring pushing through the dead brown. What day is it? I asked. Caleb checked his phone. March 29th. Planning's April 15th. 17 days. You ready? I thought about it. The church loan. The settlement money coming in installments. The equipment Buck was fixing. Caleb moving back, bringing his family. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. We drove home through the afternoon, windows down, warm air coming in. I could smell it. That earth smell, soil waking up after winter, the smell of possibility. The south field was still brown, but it wouldn't be for long. Another week, maybe 2, and it'd be ready to work. 4 generations of Hollisters had planted that field. Now there'd be a 5th. I'd won. Not because I destroyed Linda. Not because I got revenge. Because I'd protected what mattered, and I'd done it without losing myself. That was enough. April came in warm. The kind of spring that feels like forgiveness, soft rain, longer days, everything turning green at once. Mavis called me the second week. Warren, you hear about Linda? No, what? She lost her job. Bank let her go last week, officially for restructuring, but everyone knows why. I sat down at the kitchen table. How'd you hear? Her old manager called me, wanted to know if the theft charges were real. I told him they were documented and settled in court. He said they couldn't keep her on after that. Liability issue. Where's she living? Still with her mother, from what I hear. Looking for work, but word's gotten around. Nobody wants to hire someone who stole from their husband in church. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. She brought it on herself, Mavis said, like she could read my mind. You didn't do this to her. She did. I know. First settlement payment cleared yesterday. $3,500. Showed up in your account this morning. Money I'd never see all of, but some was better than none. After we hung up, I sat there looking at the kitchen. the spot where Linda had stood 4 months ago, wine glass in hand, telling me about Italy like it was nothing. She'd gambled everything on Rick, on the farm money, on me being too old and too weak to fight back, and she'd lost it all. April 14th, one day before planting deadline. I was up at dawn, checked the soil temperature, 52 degrees, perfect for corn, checked the weather, clear skies for the next 5 days, checked on the equipment, seeder ready, tractor serviced, diesel tanks full. Caleb showed up at 6 with his own truck. He'd driven down yesterday, spent the night in his old bedroom upstairs. "You ready?" he asked. "Ready." We drove the tractors to the south field, the one I always planted first, the one my dad had always planted first, the one his dad had planted first going back to 1889. The soil was perfect, dark, rich, warm enough to crumble in your hand. I knelt down, scooped some up, felt the texture. Good tilth, good moisture, everything right. Buck Treadwell drove up in his delivery truck, had the seed corn I'd ordered, already loaded and ready. "Little something extra," he said, pulling back the tarp. "New seed drill, on loan from the dealership until harvest. Figure you've had a rough winter. Could use some good equipment." "Buck, I can't." "Already arranged. Church farm loan covers it. You just plant good and pay me back in November." We loaded the seed. Buck helped us calibrate the drill, then stood back and watched. "Your daddy taught me to plant when I was 16, he said. "Told me good dirt is a gift from God, but you still got to put the seed in the ground. Said talking about farming isn't farming." I smiled. That sounded like Dad. At 8 o'clock, I started the first pass. Caleb ran the second tractor, drilling the next row. Side by side, father and son, putting corn in the ground. The weather vane on the barn was spinning free, pointing south. Good planting weather. By noon, we'd finished about 10 acres. By 3, 20. By sunset, the whole south field was planted. We shut down the tractors, stood at the field's edge, looking at the fresh-turned rows. "Mom would be proud," Caleb said. "Yeah, she would." A car pulled up the driveway. Ellen, Caleb's wife, with the kids. They piled out. 8-year-old twins, loud and full of energy. Ellen walked over with a basket. "Brought supper. Figured you'd be too tired to cook." "You didn't have to." "I know, but I wanted to." She looked at the field. "This is beautiful, Warren. Really beautiful." Mavis showed up 20 minutes later with strawberry rhubarb pie, Joan's recipe. "Couldn't let you finish planting without this," she said. We ate on the porch. Fried chicken and biscuits and green beans, the pie still warm. The kids ran around the yard, chasing each other, laughing. The sun was setting, everything gold and soft. "We talked about it," Ellen said. "Caleb and I. We're moving back, permanently, going to fix up the old barn, make it a house. Kids should grow up here." Caleb nodded. "I can work remote, handle legal work from the farm office, and help you with planting seasons." I looked at him, at Ellen, at the kids playing in the yard, where Joan and I had raised Caleb 40 years ago. "Your mother would like that," I said. "We know," Ellen smiled. "That's why we're doing it." We sat there as the light faded, the field dark and waiting, the barn solid against the sky, the weather vane pointing him true. 4 generations behind us, now a 5th coming. That night, after everyone left, I sat at the kitchen table alone. The ledger was open in front of me, Mom's old ledger, the one I'd been using to track everything, all the withdrawals in red ink, all the settlement payments in black. I picked up the red pen, wrote across the page in big letters. Paid in full. It wasn't, not really. Still owed $65,000 that I'd never see. But the debt that mattered, the one to myself, to Joan's memory, to 4 generations of Hollisters, that one was settled. I closed the ledger, put it back on the shelf with all the others, going back decades. Numbers and weather notes and yields. The history of this place, written in careful handwriting by people long gone. Through the window, I could see the south field, dark soil under moonlight. In 10 days, maybe 2 weeks, there'd be green shoots. First corn of the season, pushing up toward the sun. The weather vane was still. No wind tonight. Pointing south. Clear path forward. People ask me if I regret marrying Linda. I don't. Loneliness makes you vulnerable, but it doesn't make you foolish for wanting companionship. The mistake wasn't loving again, after Joan. The mistake was ignoring what I knew to be true because I didn't want to be alone. Joan taught me to read the land. Good soil from bad, healthy crops from diseased, when to plant and when to wait. I forgot to read people the same way. Won't make that mistake again. I'm 67 years old. Got maybe 10 good planting seasons left in me. Maybe more if I'm lucky. But my boy's home now. My grandkids will grow up running through these fields. Like their father did, like I did, like my father did. That's not losing. That's winning what matters. Outside, spring peepers started their evening song, that high chirping that means winter's truly over, warm nights coming, everything growing again. I turned off the kitchen light, looked once more at the field. You can't grow corn in concrete, and you can't build a life on a lie, but you can start over. You can plant new seed in old ground. You can stand up when someone tries to knock you down. Some debts get paid in dollars, some get paid in dirt, but they all get paid. The barn light was still on, Caleb working late in the office, already making plans for next season, already home. I went upstairs, got in bed, listened to the spring sounds through the open window, and I slept.